very good morning to you. Welcome to my thought for the day. We're looking at one verse today, and that is 1 Peter 5:6, which says, "Humble yourselves, therefore, under the mighty hand of God, that in due time he may exalt you." You know, there's a lot in our culture, in our world, and indeed in our own thinking that says we want to be recognized. We want to achieve our potential. We want to better ourselves. And we want to be appreciated for what we can do. We want to be noticed. We don't want to be ignored. And this instruction is almost the reverse of this. This is, if you want the example is written down in Philippians chapter 2, when it talks about Jesus coming down from heaven and taking on the role of a servant, submitting. And when all his submission was over, when all his obedience to the Father was over, God exalted him to the highest place. That in due time, God raised him up to the glory and position that was his right. But he did not enjoy that while he was here on earth. And we are to follow his example. Yes, we have talents and abilities that God has given us. And yes, we should use them for the kingdom. But we should not push ourselves forward. We should humble ourselves. We should submit to those over us in every aspect of life and to God's will about everything. And in due time, he will open the way to bigger things for us. More often than not, in this world. May not even be in this world, we don't know. But our submission is not to get that position. But our submission is because we are disciples. We are trying to do and live and behave the way that the Master lived and behaved. He became the servant of all. He did not crave attention. Remember in the temptations in the wilderness, he was tempted to be sensational in lots of different ways. Just think of the impact on his world if he'd turned all the stones into bread and fed everybody. What about if he'd gone to the top of the temple, the highest point, and there were always people in the temple worshipping and visiting, and just thrown himself off? Everyone would have seen him do it, and he would have been a sensation. But he waited until God exalted him. He only did what the Father told him to do. And that was not to be the focus. How many times in his ministry did he say to people, don't tell people about this, don't make a sensation of it, don't tell people what has happened? It must be really difficult for many of the people who were healed and who were so full of joy and so transformed by meeting Jesus to actually keep quiet about it. I've never understood how any of them managed to do it. They probably didn't. But it was the heart of Jesus that said, don't make this, don't tell everybody, I don't want to be a sensation to anybody. Humble yourselves, therefore, under the mighty hand of God. God is able to put you in the place where he wants you to be, to fulfill your service for him. Nothing will stand in the way of that. If God has determined to place you in a particular position, he will do it. You don't have to engineer it. You don't have to work hard to get the position that you think you've been called to. You may be right that you were called to that position, but you shouldn't be the one who is paving the way unless God tells you to do it. You should wait for him to work it out in his good time, because there may be lessons that need to be learned on the way to that position that you feel you've been called to. I came across a wonderful quotation, and it's from C.S. Lewis. Humility is not thinking less of yourself, but thinking of yourself less. Humility is not thinking less of yourself, but thinking of yourself less. You know, we are not the centre of our world. Jesus is the centre of our world. And our job here on earth is to tell people how wonderful he is and to show his character lived out in our own personal lives. And his character was one of submission to the Father. In all things, he only did what he knew the Father wanted him to do. He only spoke the words he knew the Father wanted him to speak. And there were times when some of the things he said you would think don't sound very humble. When he said, I am the light of the world. Doesn't sound very humble, does it? If anyone's thirsty, come to me and drink. That doesn't sound humble. That sounds very self-centered. But all he was doing was speaking the truth. He was not exaggerating for effect. He was speaking the truth. And humility does not stop us speaking the truth. But we do not push ourselves forward. We do not do our utmost to advance our own personal position in the world or in the workplace. In the workplace, you should be known, we should be known as the one who was willing to do anything that needed doing, the one that noticed when things needed doing, the one that didn't complain when nobody gave them a vote of thanks at the end of every shift for what they'd done, but they just persistently and continually did what they could to prosper the place where they worked and to help anyone who needed help. And they did all their work with excellence, to the best of their ability. Because when we're at work or at home, wherever we are ultimately and predominantly in the service of Jesus. We are his servants, and we follow the great example of the greatest servant of all. That's my thought for the day. God bless you. Have a great day. Bye-bye.